Thank you. Well, let me tell you something, man. We're going to have fun today. My guest, it's funny, I just met my guest for the first time in my office a few seconds ago, and it was like I knew her. I know her because I've been reading her writings, and she's witty, she's sharp. She's actually an author. She's published books. We're going to be talking about that. And she's a blogger of very, very high repute and so many other things, man. If you haven't heard of her, I don't know why, but her name is Malaka Grant, and she has a mind, man. And today on the KSM Show, we're going to be examining the mind of Malaka. Show some love. Put your hands together for Malaka Grant. Very good. Malaka, finally. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Oh no, you being here is amazing.
No. It's like I'm in my uncle's house. You know.
Let me tell you something. I'm not going to mention the name, but some time ago you wrote an article.
Yes.
I think you are responding to what somebody has said or done, and I read the article. Do you speak Twi?
No, unfortunately I don't.
Okay,
yeah,
but I said this in Twi. I'll translate it. Hey, Obaya no yeah, which means wow, this woman, she has a very sharp tongue.
Oh
man.
my goodness.
So I remember telling a friend of mine, my niece, Efia, who knows you, I said, Efia, remind me not to let me get in her way, man.
Oh gosh. Oh no, I'm harmless.
You're harmless?
Mm-hmm. I am.
But you're writing, man.
But my writing is very, I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And, you know, it's funny when you're a writer, you have to choose your words very carefully, or at least you should choose your words very carefully. And I find that people come back to us like, did you really mean to write what you wrote? I'm like, of course I meant it. I wrote it, you know? So there's that. Yeah.
Have you been in trouble with things you have written?
Oh, yes.
Plenty times?
Oh.
Which one stands out?
Gosh. Probably something I wrote in high school.
Okay.
Yes.
Way back then?
I mean, you deal with these consequences as you get older, but I remember my principal called me because what happened was I'll just give you the story in brief. I was sacked for school fees, and they said I didn't pay the school fees in dollars.
Where was this?
Where or when?
Where?
I can't mention the school. It's okay.
It's
okay. Yeah, I don't want any trouble. I mean, we have a rapport now, and I'd like to maintain it.
Okay.
And I was sacked for school fees, and they said you didn't pay in dollars, you paid in cedis. And so I wrote a whole missive about, our cultural identity and how as Ghanaians we subdued the value of the cedi, and why would my school sack me from the institution of higher learning for not paying in dollars. And so I was reinstated into the school, but I was like, they were like, such a letter, you should never write it to this institution again. So I've been in trouble ever since.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know it goes that far back.
It goes far back, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
How did you get into writing? How did you start writing? And
oh gosh, I mean, it's like, fortunately, I come from a generation where everything wasn't handed to us, right? So now anything you want on entertainment, it's at your fingertips, it's on your phone. There's no room for imagination. And growing up, I mean, you find a block, you find a tin can, you create a story. This is a roller coaster now. This is an airplane. This branch is now a human being. And from that, I was able to develop stories and use my imagination to write. And I had one auntie who wasn't a real auntie. You know what I mean by auntie. And her name was Auntie Tamu. She's passed away now. Okay. And she sat me down in front of her typewriter. This was before laptops.
Wow.
And it was the ones that used to go shing, and then exactly. And she said, write whatever you want to. And like the words were just flowing. And I've been in love with writing ever since.
Wow. So you started typing?
I started typing.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was probably back in grade 3. Yeah. So
let's go further back before.
Okay.
Where were you born?
I was born in Ghana. I was born at Kwalibu.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you went to school. You didn't mention the school, but you went to that school.
that was high school.
That was high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was born in Ghana, And my father is from Latin, my mother is from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And so the first 8 years of my life, we traveled back and forth between the States and Ghana. I remember living at Asylum Down. I remember living in Columbus. And I remember repeating grade 2 twice because I was in one place and then moved back to another. But I can tell you where I went to school. I just won't mention the school that. I went to school at So Clinic. Before it was the Dadabi institution that it is now.
It's still?
I mean, before it was like it is now. Like now it's super Dadabi. And now, and when I went, it was like, oh, this is a nice, wholesome school. And now this is where rich people send their school. So I missed that arc. And then I went to GIS, and then I went to HGIC, and then went to school for university at Hampton University in Virginia. But yeah, Ghana has my heart. This is home.
You're doing something with Kolebu. You have some NGO thing you do with Kolebu?
Yes.
For parents?
Yes. This was back when, I think you remember maybe about 10 or 11 years ago when they were holding infant babies hostage. That if you don't pay after delivery, they keep your baby until you finish paying for the delivery fee. And so what some friends of mine and I did was that we collaborated together to raise money to pay. Sometimes it would be as low as $50. You know, the most we ever paid was $100, and that was for feeding and stuff like that. So that was the work that I did. We just after 10 years, we decided that it was enough, and that the challenges were bigger than just paying for jailbreaking, so to speak, these infants. Great.
So, and you do blogging.
Yes.
You like one of the first or the first?
One of the first. I started blogging about 10 years ago. Actually, this November is my 10-year anniversary of blogging, yes. And I actually blog for two websites. One is Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women, and I started that with my best friend, Nana Dakwa Sechiyama, whom everybody seems to know.
Yeah, she's been here.
She's been here, I'm not surprised, yes. So that's my best friend. That's my sister, yeah. And then my other blog is Mind of Malaka, and that's the blog where I discuss marriage, motherhood, and madness. So whatever comes to mind is what I write about. And I've got a pretty strong following.
Very strong following.
Yes.
So marriage,
motherhood
and
madness, yes. And that's where you would have found out about the the nameless individual number one.
And marriage, you're married to a pastor.
Yes.
Well, you're not your traditional Osofo Maame.
Osofo Maame.
Osofo Maame.
Yes.
You're not Osofo Maame.
Debbie. Yeah, no.
A profile, you know, somebody that's like this dynamic, speaks their mind, everything else. Normally you don't get attracted to pastors unless the pastors are radical in thinking and something like that.
Well, I've helped him.
You
He needed help, so I helped him.
You meet you met out?
In the US, yes. We actually met freshman year. And so to give you a background, I actually grew up Muslim. So from age 0,
you grew up Muslim?
I grew up Muslim.
Okay.
This was after we left the US. So my grandmother was Baptist. So we were Baptist in according to my grandmother. And then when we came to Ghana, we became Muslim. So we lived in a household that was two religions. My dad was a Christian, my mom was a Muslim. But then my mother was like, my children are going to be Muslim, and so that's what we were. And then when I got to the US, it was like, I was kind of in limbo, and then I met my now husband, and he was like really strong in his faith and everything. And then I ended up being converted, I guess, back to Christianity. In that space.
Was that a prerequisite?
It wasn't a prerequisite.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of something I fell into. But yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was weird. That was a roller coaster. Yeah. But it's all God's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you met in school? You were mates?
We were mates. We met the first week of school, actually. And he was in the biology department, and I was in the journalism department, and I did public relations as a major. And the only class we had together was humanities. And that's where we met, and we've been together ever since. Yeah.
What was the attraction? I'm very nosy.
He said it was my teeth. my teeth attracted him.
Your teeth attracted him?
Yeah, because I
Really?
had a big smile. And for him, he's like really tall, and I like teddy bears, so he's like a big fluffy teddy bear. But outside of that, like we're two very different people. Incredibly, I'm loud and boisterous, and he's more reserved, and people are like, this one thing is not like the other.
Wow.
But it works, Of course, we've had our challenges, which I write about on the blog. But I mean, he's been able to hang in there with this crazy lady.
Yeah. I wish I was talking. I would have asked him, how do you do it?
He can't even answer himself. He doesn't know the answer, how he's doing it. He's just coping.
And you have kids?
We have 4 kids.
You have 4 kids?
Yes. My oldest is 14. She'll be 15 in December. So their ages are 14, 13, 10, and 9. Yeah, the 9-year-old was the bonus baby. So she was kind of a surprise. We had 2 girls and then the boy. And I remember I was on the ultrasound table and they said, it's a boy. I said, oh, thank you, Jesus. We can be done. And my husband, I said, we can be done, right? And he was like, yeah, of course we can be done. And 3 months later, I was like, I feel pregnant. Not I felt pregnant, I feel pregnant, because by then, I'd had experience in being pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what are we gonna do? He was like, we're gonna have a baby. So we have 4 kids.
Okay. Okay.
KSM,
okay.
how many children do you have?
I have 5.
5?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm late, I'm behind. Need to catch up.
You're gonna catch up?
I'm gonna catch up. Maybe it'll be a dog, a goldfish, I don't know. Something to take care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. So between you and him, bringing up the child, your children,
Yeah.
any differences in motherhood, fatherhood, parenting conflicts, or you're all from the same school?
We're pretty much from the same school of thought. He is, I like to think of myself as this strict disciplinarian, and it's just not the case. The children respect him more than they respect me. And I'm like, I'm a hot girl. Why don't you respect me?
They see through it.
They see through it. I mean, they've seen through a whole show. But he is, he's solid. He's a solid guy. And the kids really, really look up to him. When they need an encouraging word, they go to him. When they need a chuckle, they come to me. When they want food, they go to him. I don't cook, I clean. So that's been the dynamics in our house, is he does all the cooking. Because like when he cooks chicken, for example, the chicken is glazed, it's got rosemary, there's lemon on the side. When I cook chicken, it's fried. It's cooked, it's like, eat it, So those are the dynamics in our house, which really kind of sometimes confuse people. And it's like, your husband is so much more nurturing than you are. And I'm like, but each of us serves our role, and we complement each other in those ways. Yeah.
Wow. So you've been back in Ghana for how long now?
It's now been 3 weeks.
3
Yes,
weeks.
yes.
Okay.
And
you flew into this CSC mess, eh?
yes,
Comprehensive Sexuality Education.
Yes.
What's your take?
My take is, I think it's important. I think it's necessary. And I think that people who have issues with it didn't actually read the document. Because I think that as a culture, you hear the word sex or sexuality and you immediately conjure up pleasure or male-female intercourse or whatever. But the CSC is actually asking or mandating the government to, or our teachers, to teach comprehensive attitudes towards sex, which include how to take care of your body, hygiene, fairness. That's one of the themes that I kept reading in this article is fairness. So is it fair for a peer or an adult to demand something of me sexually as a student that I'm not willing or shouldn't be engaging in? And that's a concept that you actually have to teach from a small child, is that you have agency over your body. Nobody has the right to come and touch you in a way that you're not comfortable with, that makes you feel inferior or less than yourself. And that's what the foundation is. And then as you get older, you get into the safe sex aspects, morality around it, and so that you have a comprehensive view of sex and an attitude towards sex and sexuality, as opposed to any man who is like, oh, my small wife, then you can just be touching the child any giddy kind of way, So I think that it's good.
So that was your take on it when you
That
read
was
it.
my take.
Why do you think the word or the name satanic even came up? Because there were people that was, this is not this is not sexual education. This is a comprehensive satanic. Did you hear that?
I heard about it, and I didn't even follow the interviews or the thinking, because as an Osofo Maame, I'm introduced to all kinds of people in the back rooms, and I'm like, you people are all hypocrites. And I wasn't even interested in the pseudo kind of explanations that they were trying to give. I think that anytime we have a conversation as Christians about sex, if it's not in the context of marriage or in the bubble of marriage, then it's satanic. And it's just, marriage manifests in so many different ways, in so many different cultures, that it's, you can't prescribe a way to have this discussion. And a lot of these guys, the reason for me, the problem I have is that you have this problem with CSE, but you don't have a problem with the pastor that's raping the choir member, or he's having several affairs, or the youth leader that's demanding nudes from young impressionable girls. We never have these discussions. But when it comes to a conversation about fairness and hygiene, you feel like this is the moment for you to come in and talk about it and say it's satanic, because the little bit that I heard was, well, they want to make all our children gay. You can't make anybody gay. As I'm sitting here, I can't make you gay. I think you're gay or you're not, and I think that's the disconnect, and it's a very narrow way of thinking.
It was a very massive disconnect then, because
Yes.
that was the whole approach,
Yeah.
because there was a line in there somewhere that said they were going to teach the kids open-mindedness, and that's what people like to open-mindedness.
Open-mindedness.
It's okay to be gay.
What? It's okay for somebody else to be gay. What? We're going to have tolerance in our society? I don't think so. Yeah. It's incredible, because we have, and I keep hearing this thing about African culture.
Yeah.
Africa goes from Egypt all the way down to South Africa, where I live now. There's no such thing as African culture. In Ghana alone, how many different ethnicities do we have? And we have so many different ways of doing things. And each of us has our own approaches to doing things, and attitudes of how we adjudicate things. So there's no such thing as African culture. That's how they enslaved us, because they're like, oh, you're all Africans, you're all black, you're all, fodder for me to put on a boat and take away. And we're not a monolith. We don't all think the same things. We don't all believe the same things. And it's just a myth that we've latched onto, because, like you said, open-mindedness. No, let me be narrow in my thinking.
Open-mindedness means you're going to accept being gayism and lesbian.
Yeah.
That was the whole angle.
That was the whole angle.
Thrown into this whole thing.
Right.
And when it comes to that, it's like,
it's intolerable.
Yeah.
But the problem is that open-mindedness doesn't mean that I agree with your lifestyle, but it does mean I have to respect it. As you are sitting here, I might not like your socks, but you chose your socks. The orange in your socks matches the orange in your shirt. And to you, that was like, wow, I'm styling, I'm out here, I'm looking good. And I have to respect that, even though I don't like it. Yeah. That's open-mindedness. Yeah. Open-mindedness doesn't mean that now I have to now go and buy orange and black socks and become KSM.
Put your hands together, man. Malaka. Today I just want to pick your brains. The mind of Malaka on display on the KSM show.
That's right.
Anyway, so we're going to go into commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about that stuff. But I want to conclude on this CSE thing. Misunderstanding. It was like the communication wasn't clear. People just thought that this was just a way to introduce, quote unquote, foreign cultures into our society and things like that. I think that whoever was responsible for communicating this message didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Because there are so many issues. I think somewhere in the central region they had 14,000 teenage pregnancies.
Yes.
14,000.
Yes.
And I hear the numbers are even staggering in the Volta region.
Yeah.
So this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it is very, very important that we have a system that can help the kids understand that there's a way to go by to prevent these.
Right.
And so to that extent, that education is necessary.
It is completely
making people
necessary.
aware. And so I just wanted or wish that somebody would have come out and really explain Because the whole explanation, the whole communication was a bit messed up in the beginning, yeah.
My history teacher actually says something about that. Mr. Chris Tay, if you're watching, he says that we find ourselves in situations where we judge before we have a chance to assess.
Yeah.
And so we take little bits of information and we create an entire ideology behind it.
Yeah.
And we've created a value judgment before we've been able to assess, critical pieces of information before we jump to judgment. And I think that, in these cases, these numbers that you're mentioning are appalling.
Yeah.
And within that framework, yes, these children should be able to know that this is the wrong thing, but within that framework, these adults should also know that you will be held accountable. And because we don't have a culture of accountability in this country, we hold the poor man accountable. You steal yam today, you go to jail for 10 years. Yeah. But you steal millions of dollars that's supposed to go into roadworks and hospitals, and you go scot-free, but you're worried about your reputation. Yeah. But you continue to make money. But we don't have a culture that holds everybody accountable to the measure of their quote-unquote sins. And so, again, like you're saying, to dovetail on what you're saying, it should have been rolled out a lot differently, letting kids know that this is not okay when it happens to you, and letting adults know that, hey, if caught, you will be held accountable for your actions as well. Because you can't tell me 14,000 teenage girls are going in search of sex for whatever reason. This is probably a group of men who are predators and are preying on these children, because these aren't just like one-off men. I know, for instance, one of my schools, which will remain unnamed, had a teacher who was predatorial. And after he was sacked, we found out that he was just sent to another school. So you just continue to place these people in different places, and you never get to the root of the problem. Yeah. Okay. And that needs to be part of the discussion as well.
We're hanging out with Malaka. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, ball. Malaka. We'll be right back.
The KSM Show.